My name is Felicia Wang, and I'm a third year double majoring in psychology and ecology, evolution, and biodiversity.
Hello, my name is Jillian Yick. I'm a third year student studying human development and psychology.
Hi, I'm Jolly Chu, and I'm a fourth year studying human development.
Our URC presentation is titled Parent-Child Emotion Talk and its Link to Children's Emotion Regulation, a cross-cultural comparison between Mexican American and Chinese American families. I'll begin by discussing our background and our research goals. Emotion socialization refers to the behaviors and interactions that influence a child's overall development and understanding of emotions. Emotion socialization occurs within a family unit as parents continually instill emotional competencies within their children through emotion talk, reacting to their child's emotions, and modeling emotion expression. It is widely established that cultural models are crucial in influencing parental ideals and socialization goals for their children. Studies show that supportive maternal responses are correlated with higher levels of child expressive emotion knowledge, as well as lower levels of distraction or problem-solving behaviors. The majority of emotion socialization research has studied white and middle-class Americans. Therefore, we aim to analyze emotion socialization in Mexican American and Chinese American families in this study to fill in these gaps. Emotion talk, or ET, is the use of emotion language to address emotional states, physical beings, and other sensations. Emotion regulation, or ER, encompasses all processes in monitoring, understanding, and modifying one's reaction to the outside environment in an effort to fulfill one's motivations. Studies have shown that a child's development of emotion regulation is facilitated by an openness towards emotion talk within child-caregiver interactions. For example, talking about negative emotions and acceptance may affirm children's feelings and lower children's elevated negative emotionality. Emotion talk is essential in shaping a child's emotional experience and growing an understanding of others' emotions. For example, when mothers talk frequently about emotions to their young children, they are establishing that communication regarding emotions is appropriate. Parent-led conversations surrounding emotions allow children to connect expressions, situations, and words into an overarching schema about the emotional experience. Cultural differences between ER are revealed through voluntarily controllable and socially visible aspects of the human emotion system. An example of these socially visible aspects are saying how we are feeling or displaying an emotion on our faces. Mexican American mothers are more likely to engage in emotion talk centering the mother's and others' emotion rather than the child's emotions. Furthermore, Chinese Americans elicit significantly less emotional responses, such as shock or anger, than Mexican Americans do. This can be explained by cultural differences. A collectivist Chinese culture tends to put less emphasis on emotions in the social aspect compared to the individualistic American culture. On the other hand, Latin American cultures believe that emotions can increase cohesiveness, so emotion expression is widely encouraged.
So the goals of this study is to fill in gaps in the current literature on the cultural differences between emotion talk and emotion regulation. And we also want to examine how parent-child emotion talk impacts a child's emotion regulation. And hopefully these results can help us better define parenting and teaching strategies to best help young children in their childhood to effectively develop their emotion regulation. So we have two research questions. Our first one is, what are the cultural differences between Mexican American and Chinese American families in emotion talk? And we expect to see that Mexican American families engage in more emotion talk than Chinese American families. Our second question is, how does parent-child emotion talk impact the child's emotion regulation? And we expect to see a greater use of emotion regulation strategies within the dyads who engage in more emotion talk. Next, we'll be going over the methods of the study. So our sample consists of Mexican American and Chinese American families from Head Start preschool programs. And the data was collected when the child's participants were around 4.5 years old. So to measure emotion talk, we use the frog book assessment, where the dyads were given 5 minutes to read a picture book together that contained no word, and the parent was instructed to use any language they preferred, and 2 coders for the data were used for each culture to maintain high inter-rater reliability. And then we measured emotion regulation through the transparent box assessment. In this task, the child interviewer gives the child a set of keys, and they would tell them to open a transparent box filled with fun toys. And the child would be left alone for 4 minutes with a set of keys which did not have the actual key. And this was to elicit frustration. And the data for this task was also coded by 2 individuals for each culture to maintain high inter-rater reliability. And they were coded for attention to other objects or people, and eloping, meaning whether just child walked away from the box, persistence, the length of time that the child spent on unlocking the box, and if the child engaged in emotion self-talk, such as saying, "I'm so frustrated." So to analyze the data, we conducted 3 statistical tests: Wilcox test, Pearson correlation, regression analysis, and Felicia will be going more into details about these tests in the next section.
And now we can move on to the results. When the demographic variables were compared between Mexican American and Chinese American families, significant differences were found in parent age, parent years in the US, and total children in the household. MA parents of preschoolers in this study tended to be younger than CA parents. In general, the MA parents had lived in the US longer than the CA parents, and on average, MA families had more children in the household. When Wilcox tests were performed, we found some significant differences in emotion talk variables. MA parents displayed higher frequencies of negative emotion words, higher quality of emotion talk, and increased emotion reasoning. The non-significant ET variables were parent positive emotion words and child emotion talk variables. Significant emotion regulation variables were noted as well. CA children paid more attention to the child investigator and paid more attention to other objects, while MA children eloped more often. The non-significant group differences in emotion regulation variables were persistence, number of tries, number of encouragements, attention to target object, and gaze aversion. Next, Pearson correlations were performed between the ET and ER variables. There are a number of moderate correlations. All p-values are less than 0.05, so deemed significant. Among the correlations, we will focus further analysis on the observation that higher parent emotion reasoning during frog book storytelling is associated with lower child attention to CI during the transparent box task. The correlation coefficient is negative 0.28 and the p-value is 0.015. Finally, a regression analysis was performed to examine the relations between the ET variable, parent emotion reasoning, and the ER variable, child's attention to CI. Results show that parent emotion reasoning was negatively associated with child attention to CI after controlling for culture.
And now we'll wrap up our presentation by going over our findings and implications. Our preliminary findings show that on average, some emotion talk and emotion regulation variables were higher in Mexican American families than the Chinese American families. This is consistent with past research, as Mexican American culture is more expressive than Chinese culture. These findings also support our first hypothesis that Mexican American parents would engage in higher levels of emotion talk with their children than the Chinese American dyads would. Furthermore, parent emotion reasoning is negatively associated with a child's attention to the child investigator. This finding describes how children are not seeking help from the child investigator when met with frustration in the transparent box task, and perhaps engaging more problem-solving behaviors internally. This supports our hypothesis that increased levels of parent-child emotion talk leads to greater amounts of emotion regulation within the children. This data is also consistent with previous findings that maternal emotion dysregulation is associated with less problem solving from the child during the transparent box task.
Based on our findings and the past literature, we can infer that higher child engagement in emotion regulation strategies may be associated with stronger motivations in future goal-directed activities. Our study also revealed cultural differences in emotion talk and emotion regulation, and intervention strategies for immigrant children should be cognizant that culture may influence the amount of emotion talk at home, thus affecting a child's emotion regulation development.
And finally, in future studies, we can have larger sample sizes to have more generalizable results. And we could also probably consider other factors that may influence parent emotion talk. For example, family stress, or even consider higher or other socioeconomic status families. And to have more ecological validity, besides the frog book assessment, we could also consider other situations in which it could be more naturalistic to measure emotion talk. And finally, to look further into the motivations in future goal-directed activities from our study's implications, researchers can use longitudinal design and see how cultural differences in emotion talk and emotion regulation plays a role in social, emotional, and academic outcomes.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our presentation. We wanted to acknowledge that this study is funded by the National Institutes of Health and National Institute of Children Health and Human Development. And we also thank all the participants and their families, as well as everyone involved with Project Lead, especially Dr. Yuko Uchikoshi Tonkovich, Megan Chan, Michelle Ta, and Emily Mack. Thank you.